Shabbat Shalom. Okay, so before I even begin to talk what I'm going to talk about today, somebody asked me if I was going to talk about the Nicholas Kristof article in the New York Times, and I was. But then I realized we had a bat mitzvah this morning, and the type of language I could use to talk about that article, I cannot use this morning because there's a lot of guests that have never been here before, and I cannot use that language in front of them. So I'm not talking about that. We'll save it for a different time. But trust me, there's never a lack of controversy. So we're going to go for the second controversy. First of all, let me explain something about the book of Numbers, Bamidbar, in the wilderness. Beyond the census, there's something that happens in this Torah portion that is actually transcendental to the history of the Jewish people. The second chapter of Numbers talks about the way the tribes of Israel organize themselves around the tabernacle, around the Mishkan. And it was a very conscious effort to surround the Mishkan, to surround the tabernacle, and to give it a place as a central structure amongst the Israelites. Not only because that was the dwelling place of God, but also because the Torah makes emphasis on how all of the tribes were looking at the same center. And that's important to note, because even though, as you see in the beginning of the Torah portion with all of those names that the Torah mentions as the leaders of the tribes, every tribe had a different leader with different thoughts, different aspirations. Every tribe had a different symbol, a different flag, different ideas. But there was a unifying force, which was the centrality of the tabernacle. They all faced inwards. And if you think this is a minor thing in Jewish law or in the Jewish tradition, let me share something really poignant with you. The way synagogues were built for centuries was based in this structure of the encampment of the Israelites. What you see here today, this type of auditorium, to use political language, is a fake synagogue. Just kidding. What I really mean is, we never used to pray in an auditorium type of way. This was not meant to be a show. This was not meant to be a performance where the cantor would sing opera, right? Where the rabbi would just expose his thoughts and everybody would listen like if you're in the movie theater. Judaism is participatory, and that was the whole essence of the encampment and the tabernacle at the center. That when it's at the center, everybody participates in making sure that the center is always there. So, for centuries, the main platform of the synagogue was placed in the center. People used to sit around it, and they would listen to the words of the Torah emanating from the center of the room, not from the head of the room or from the back of the room, but from the center. Now, ironically, right, when we built this synagogue, I already got here before it was built, but the ideas were already in motion. If you take a look, you can do it later, the first two chairs of the first two rows are designed to be taken out. And the reason why is because when I finally got my 2 cents in, I thought that one day we probably could have the Torah reading table in the center. And because we knew we were going to fix the rest of the sanctuary, I wanted to make sure we could actually take these chairs out. And then we had another problem, right? That one over there is the one where Rabbi Goodman always sits. So we never actually got to do that. But maybe one day. Now, the chapel, for example, the chapel was intentionally made without fixed seating. So we could arrange the seating in any way we wanted for any occasion. And also we wanted to mirror the Mishkan and the encampment of the Israelites. We could actually do it. So there are a lot of things here that were done intentionally. The colors, right? Acacia wood, the sand of the desert. All of these things have everything to do with the book of Numbers. Now, there's all sorts of traditions in Judaism that come to us, we have no idea from where, okay? We know a lot of things, but we also do not know a lot of things. So this idea of an auditorium, we copied from Christianity. And by the way, I always chuckle when I see people going down the bima, like reversing themselves, right? like not giving their back to the ark. Look, I hate to break the news, but the ark is not a crucifix. The Torah is not an idol. If we were not allowed to give our backs to the ark, DJ and I would already be in hell. So, the Shulchan Aruch, right? The outmost code of Jewish law of the Middle Ages already tells us that the place for the reading of the Torah is the center of the room. By the way, curiously, it also mentions that you are allowed to sit anytime the Torah is not being paraded around, right? So if we were standing every time the Torah is not covered, we would have to spend the entire Torah reading standing. That's, by the way, in plain Hebrew, in the Shulchan Aruch. So for those of you whose custom is to wait until the Torah is covered to be seated, it's really not that centered in the core of Jewish tradition. Another one, when we lift the Torah and we go like this, well, not me, but a lot of people go like this. Why? Every 9 out of 10 people that I ask, because it's one of my pet peeves, they do not know. And the 10th one makes it up, right? So, yeah, we're trying to say that God wrote the Torah through the hand of Moses, and clearly the pinky symbolizes the hand of God or the hand of Moses. But it's very anthropomorphic. This tradition, for example, is not mentioned anywhere. Yet, the true tradition about synagogue building, community building, comes from the tabernacle at the center. Now, I made a very long explanation for something that I'm not going to talk about. I'm not going to talk about tradition. I want to talk about the centrality of what needs to be in the center within the Jewish community. But it's not only us, right? America has centers. Universities have centers. Families have centers. We all have something that we place at the center of our life, whether it be power or politics or ideology or religion or comfort or God or neither of those things. But there's always something at the center. That's human nature. For better or for worse, the state of Israel has become the defining center of the Jewish people. For much of our history, of our modern history, the center of our arguments were based on our denomination. Are you Reform? Are you conservative? Do you travel to shul? Do you wear a kippah in the synagogue? Right? What kind of kashrut do you keep? For a long time, these were our arguments. Today, increasingly, our arguments are about how do we feel about Israel? Where do you stand when it comes with Israel? Do you stand with Israel or against Israel? Or you don't care? This is really what is defining us. There are Jews for whom Israel is a beating heart of the Jewish destiny. And there are Jews from Israel, if it didn't exist, it wouldn't matter. Now, of course, I don't agree with that, but it's a fact. Look at the college campuses. Look at synagogue tensions. I have literally hundreds of colleagues who tell me they can't speak about Israel because half the congregation will get enraged for whatever they say. Right? Family tensions. Oh, all of us, including myself. We all have those tensions in our families. Jews struggling publicly with solidarity for the state of Israel. Now, the interesting part about all of this is that we've never been so much under attack as we are now as Jews. Now, don't get me wrong, we're entitled to our difference of opinion, right? The tribes were different, like I said at the beginning. But the danger came, and the Torah is aware of this, when the tribes stopped facing the center. As a matter of fact, there's an episode in the book of Deuteronomy when they're going to enter the land, and 2 of the tribes went to settle on the eastern side of the river Jordan. And Moses says to them, you're going to be disconnected from the center. You can't do that. And after consulting with God in a long argument, they actually swear that if there is a war, they will come to defend the rest of the people, and that they will always face the center. So even in those days, facing the center was the thing. Look, we've always argued. Hillel and Shammai argued. Hasidim and Mitnagdim argued. Look at Israel. Religious Jews and secular Jews argue every day. They stop the traffic every single day. But when it comes to us who live outside, these arguments are extremely dangerous. And I want to share with you something that happened last week. At the same time as the Christoph article came out, a couple of stupid students at JTS, which is my alma mater, the Jewish Theological Seminary, which is the home of conservative Judaism and its intellectuality and its spirituality, decided to write a letter in protest of the seminary inviting as a commencement speaker Chaim Herzog, the president of the State of Israel, who, by the way, accepted. He was going to be granted an honorary degree. Well, he still is going to be granted a honorary doctorate degree, and he was going to be the keynote speaker at the commencement. So these students argued that he was a polarizing figure, that he supported the war, and all of these things. By the way, to call Herzog, of all Israeli politicians, a polarizing figure is to say that water is not parv, right? There is no more neutral politician in Israel than Herzog. And precisely like the chancellor of the seminary explained to the students that protested, the president of the State of Israel is a symbol of the people and the country, not of the government. So you could not like the government all you want. He does not represent Netanyahu or Ben-Gvir or Smotrich or any of these people. He represents the people and the state. Well, after a torturous week of another couple of students writing their names on the letter, some alumni writing their names on the letter, altogether 28 people signed their names to this letter. Chaim Herzog sent a communication to the seminary saying he was not coming. Now, he explained that he was not coming because the situation in Israel does not allow him to leave right now. And for those of you who do not know what's going on, the government's about to fall, right? It's within hours of falling. And the president, believe it or not, is tasked with forming a government and keeping it together while all of these politicians take sides and fight each other. So serendipitously, he's not coming. But what happened next was completely disheartening. Chancellor Schwartz, whom I love, who I find to be a tremendous scholar and a wonderful, wonderful teacher, wrote a letter where she said that she was proud that pluralism was something that was alive and well at the seminary, that students could express their thoughts and their ideas without fear of being put on the outside of the pale. Well, when I read that letter, I almost fainted. Because, look, at this time in our history, we need to face towards the center, or we're going to disappear. One of my dear colleagues, a good friend of mine, Rabbi David Seth Kirshner from Gloucester, New Jersey, delivered a sermon last week, and now with the internet you can watch everybody's sermons, right? So I watched his sermon. He spoke about this. And he had one phrase that he said that I wish we could turn into a bumper sticker. You know, because a lot of people think that our ability to remain relevant is based on the fact that everybody should fit in our tent, and everybody could be part of the tent, and we have to listen to everybody's ideas, like the chancellor of JTS just expressed. Rabbi Kirshner actually said something brilliant. A tent needs boundaries, or it cannot be a tent. Right? A tent without walls doesn't stand. So even a tent, as big as it can be, needs boundaries. And when we lose those boundaries, we lose the connection to the center, and we lose our compass. Israel represents Jewish peoplehood, Jewish vulnerability, Jewish continuity, responsibility. It also represents Jewish power and Jewish powerlessness at the same time. Israel represents our language reborn, our covenant with history and God. Look, for the first time in 2,000 years, we as Jews are not standing on the margins of history waiting for somebody to protect us. For the first time, we actually can take our destiny in our own hands and write our own story. So yeah, I believe that students at the teaching center of conservative Judaism absolutely should be shown the door when they act like this. And I also believe that we need to keep some adults in the room that can show them the door. Because Judaism, by the way, always had boundaries. We love pluralism, but there are parameters. There's a sugya in the Talmud, there's actually a beautiful story in the Talmud, that says that one should not go to the bathroom to relieve oneself at the well where one drinks water from. There is no more cleaner understanding of the concept that I'm trying to put through. And if we do not understand this, we really are going to lose our identity. So, as a conservative rabbi, I bear with pain the embarrassment of what's happening at my alma mater. And I hope that the next chancellor, who starts in a couple of months, Michael Uram, who's my contemporary, is able to take the reins of the situation and set this back in the course where it should be. Because the question facing Jewish life today is not whether we will argue as Jews. Jews have always argued. You know the joke, right? A Jew is left in a deserted island. He comes to be rescued 20 years later, and he's by himself in the island. And the people who rescue him said, let us get this straight. There's only one of you, but there's 3 synagogues. He says, yeah, that one I don't set foot in, that one I don't like, and that's the one I'm going to right now. We have always argued. We carry this wherever we go. The question now is whether Israel and the fate of the Jewish people will be at the center of the camp. And my answer, and our answer should be absolutely yes. Absolutely, it should. Shabbat Shalom.